Hi, I'm Stu from Hive Mind Automation and welcome to the Hive. Today I'm going to take a look at something a little bit different, the UniFi U7 in-wall wireless access point. Now, for those of you who've been following the channel for a while, you know that I already run a lot of UniFi gear in my network setup. I've got the UniFi Dream Machine Pro as my home router. I've got UniFi cameras and the U6 Pro wireless access point scattered around the house. And one of the things that I've always liked about the UniFi ecosystem is how well everything integrates together and how clean the deployments can be. The U7 in-wall is particularly interesting because it's designed to replace a standard wall plate. So not only do you get the latest Wi-Fi 7 technology in this box, but you also get an integrated 2-port 2.5 gigabit switch built right into this wall plate, which is perfect for hotel rooms, offices, or even bedrooms, where you might want both wireless coverage and some additional wired connectivity. So in this video, we'll be unboxing it, we'll get it adopted into my UniFi console and talk a little bit about why I got the U7 in-wall. So while I roll the intro, why don't you take a moment to subscribe? And if you hit the bell icon, you'll get notified when I release new videos. While you're at it, if you enjoy what I do here and you want to support the channel, there's some affiliate links to smart home gadgets that you can buy for your own smart home in the video description and support the channel at the same time without it costing any extra. Or you can support the channel directly through my Buy Me a Coffee link. Of course, those affiliate links and my Buy Me a Coffee link can also be found on my website, hivemindautomation.com.au. With all of that out of the way, let's get started. Now, before we get into the U7 in-wall, if you are in Melbourne and you want to see Home Assistant in action, I'll be exhibiting at the Train and Hobby Show at Sandown Racecourse on March the 14th and 15th. This year, I'm focusing on AI integration. I'll have this U7 in-wall, and you'll also get to see the Home Assistant Voice Preview Edition in action. And I'll also have this Seed Studio Watcher doing its thing, and hopefully a bunch of other AI-powered automation running live. If you've been watching the channel and you want to ask questions about Home Assistant, smart home automation, or just want to see how this stuff actually works in practice, come say g'day. I'll have the booth set up with some live demos that you can interact with. The Train and Hobby Show is a great family day out where you can explore a variety of hobbies, including model trains, radio-controlled cars or drones, and even more, ham radio, electronics, retro gaming and collectible cards, and so much more. Get your tickets today at trainandhobbyshow.com.au. That's trainandhobbyshow.com.au, or click the link in the video description. I'll see you there. So a few weeks ago, thinking about the Train and Hobby Show and how I was going to handle the setup, I remember having a lot of challenges with my wireless networking last time that I was there, and it had a lot to do with this Netgear Nighthawk 4G modem that I was using. Now, don't get me wrong, this is a great little unit, but it does have some limitations, and especially as it gets warmer and heats up. The modem router function works completely fine, but the wireless radios struggle. I couldn't even get my Google Nest Hub to pair to the Wi-Fi when I was setting up for the show. So I wanted to ensure that I had a high quality, reliable wireless access point to separate out the wireless functionality from the modem and router functionality, in the hopes that that will significantly improve the reliability of my wireless network for the Train and Hobby Show. And that's where the U7 in-wall comes into play. Because it's designed to be wall mounted, I don't need to stress about mounting it on a horizontal plane like the normal UniFi access points, such as putting it on the ceiling. I can just have a desk mount, and conveniently there's either official desk mounts that you can purchase, or there's this 3D printed desk stand that I printed available for UniFi in-wall access points. Now this one is in fact designed for the U6, but all of the holes line up to use with the U7. Not only that, but for the rest of the year, when I'm not at a hobby or trade show, I'll be able to set this unit up in my lounge room, which should help to boost the performance of my 2.4 gigahertz network in the back half of the house, as well as provide Wi-Fi 7 for devices in that back part of the house. Now let's talk about pricing. The U7 in-wall prices at around 275 to 310 Australian dollars, depending on where you shop. Now, it's certainly not cheap, but you are getting a Wi-Fi 7 access point plus a 2-port 2.5 gigabit switch in the one device. So in my opinion, that seems like pretty good value when you think about it that way. And when you compare it to deploying a separate access point and a separate switch, especially in a retrofit situation where you may need to run additional cabling, and that can get quite expensive quite quickly, it does start to look like a really smart solution. I picked up this one from ScorpTech for $309, but annoyingly I have seen them on Amazon this morning for $274, and I will put an affiliate link in the description for the Amazon listing if you're looking to pick one up yourself. I definitely should have shopped around, but I certainly appreciate the after-sales service that I am pretty much guaranteed from ScorpTech, which is why I keep shopping with them, even if it does cost me a little bit extra. There is a U7 in-wall Pro that also provides a 6 GHz network, but it is a fair bit more expensive. For my purposes, I can really live without the 6 GHz, so I wasn't too worried about adding that in and getting the Pro. Now, in terms of prerequisites, something that you do need to keep in mind is that you are going to need either a PoE switch or a PoE injector to power this, because the input is a 2.5 gigabit PoE plus port. If you want to use the PoE output feature on one of these switch ports, you do specifically need PoE plus on the input. You can just run it off regular PoE to just get the wireless. For best results, you should definitely be plugging it into a 2.5 gigabit PoE plus switch port so that you get the full speed of the Wi-Fi 7 and you can make use of the PoE pass-through on this port right here. Now, in my setup, I only have 1 gigabit Ethernet here in the house at the moment, but I have put an 8-port UniFi 2.5 gig switch on order, and I'll have that for the Train and Hobby Show. And I actually have a need to replace an 8-port switch in the entertainment unit over there anyway, so it's going to work out pretty well, I would think. The U7 in-wall itself doesn't come with a power injector, but if you're already running UniFi gear, there's a good chance that you've already got PoE infrastructure in place, or you can pick up a relatively cheap PoE injector to power this up. At the moment, I'm running Cisco PoE gear, but I'm going to be replacing the switch that has that PoE at some point in the not too distant future. There'll be videos about that when it happens. To properly adopt this into your Ubiquiti ecosystem, you're also going to need Ubiquiti UniFi network controller of some kind. In my case, I'm running the UDM Pro here at home, which runs UniFi OS, and it has the network controller built in, but Ubiquiti did recently release the UniFi Network Server, which can run on Windows, Linux, or Mac OS. You don't need to have the UniFi Network Server running 100% of the time, but you are going to need it when you are setting up the unit to adopt the devices and configure the devices for your network requirements. For now, I'll be adopting this UniFi U7 in-wall into my UDM Pro for use at home, but for the Train and Hobby Show, I'll be setting up UniFi Network Server either in a Docker container or on a Raspberry Pi to handle everything that I need it to for the Train and Hobby Show. It's worth mentioning the coverage for this unit is rated at about 115 square meters, and it can handle over 200 connected devices, which is going to be absolutely overkill for most residential or even small office deployments. But it could be particularly handy in a hotel situation, or if you were to scatter these, say, in a conference center around the outside of a conference hall, for example. With all of the prerequisites, etc. out of the way, let's go take a quick look around the outside of the box over on the unboxing bench, and we'll also get it unboxed.
So starting with the front of the box, we've got a representation of the shape. On the top, we've just got UniFi. On the right side, U7 in-wall. On the left side, U7 in-wall. On the back, unifi.ui.com. And on the bottom, we've got a bunch of barcodes, some addresses, some compliance logos. And under this sticker, there's a fast provisioning QR code. It took a bit to get under this sticker, but you'll see the QR code there in just a sec. So there's a quick provisioning QR code under that sticker. So the outside of the box is very minimal. Getting it out of the box now, and we'll flip the box over, and there is a paper tape tab here that will peel back and flip open the top flap. We've got an installation guide QR code there, and opening the rest of the box, and we can slide out the cardboard insert. And we'll just check there's nothing else inside the box, and there isn't. So inside the cardboard insert, we can open the two flaps either side, and we have the U7 in wall itself, and it's in a kind of plastic cellophane there. We've got a marking template with a spirit level built in that we can use to mark the holes in the wall and the cutouts. There's the backing plate, and it is made of an anodized metal, I'm assuming probably aluminium. Then we've got some screws and wall plugs, some more screws, those are machine screws, and then we have the eject tool, which is how we remove it from the back plate. And then we've got some paperwork in a little booklet here. The booklet includes a QR code with a link to the installation guide and some safety and radiation exposure information. So that's about it for what's in the box. We'll just lay this out a little bit nicely. I will say that the cutting template is quite nice with the built-in spirit level. It's nice that they have included that, and the metal backplate feels really well made. The quality of the unit itself is also quite nice. If we peel off the cellophane, we'll be able to get it out of the plastic wrap and take a closer look. So the 2.5 gig PoE plus input on the back there, and the front, it's very unassuming. You wouldn't think that it looks out of place anywhere. There's a latch at the top, and if we grab the backing plate, you'll see we've got two notches at the bottom and then a latch hole at the top, and that will kind of click in when you mount it onto the wall. So it clicks in and it sits there quite positively and it doesn't come out, and you do need to use the eject tool that we saw before to release that. I do like the build quality, and we've got the two 2.5 gig ports on the bottom there, and that right port there is the PoE pass-through port, and there's also the reset button on the bottom of the unit itself. Now, in order to make this an essentially portable unit and being able to bring it to the Train and Hobby Show, I have 3D printed this mount stand, this desk stand for the U7 in wall, and it is actually a desk stand for a U6, but all of the holes line up, or at least some of them do, so we're going to be able to use it for that purpose. So I'm just screwing it in with some M3 countersunk screws, and on the back I've got some M3 nylock nuts that I'm going to put on just to make sure that everything stays put. And something I did notice off camera is that what you see here is me putting it on backwards. So I should have put the plate on the other side, because that will bring the weight above the very center of the print.
Okay, great. Now that we've got it out of the box, let's hook it up to the network and we'll get it adopted into our UniFi network.
So I'm just plugging in a PoE cable here from my switch into the U7 in wall, and after a second or two we get the blue light on the front, and it will start flashing in a moment saying that it's provisioning, etc. After a few moments, and it took around about 2 minutes to show up in UniFi devices in my UniFi console here, and we see U7 in wall, and there's the click to adopt button there. So once we click on click to adopt, it starts adopting, and if we click on the U7 in wall row again here, we should see the status is showing adopting, and it will go through that process. So it sat in this adopting status for about a minute, and then it was connected, and then it started updating. This updating took around about 2 minutes. So there was obviously a couple of firmware updates available, and we see the LED start flashing there while it runs the update. So with the update completed now, it's not showing me absolutely everything just yet, but we can see it is getting ready. So we've got the port manager and AirView show here. We can also see at the moment it's saying a fallback IP is assigned because it couldn't reach DHCP. That fixes itself after a few minutes. We can see we've got the 2.4 gigahertz channel and the 5 gigahertz channel there. We've got some insights that are available to us and the settings. If we take a look at settings, we've got device tags at the top, and I haven't set any there. We've got our radios, and we can set our channel width and transmission power for both the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. There's roaming assistant and minimum RSSIs, so we can explicitly set a minimum signal strength before it will forcibly bounce a device off this access point. And we can also set this as a mesh parent and mesh connect so that this device can either host or participate in a mesh network. We've also got network override, and if we enable that, we can change the VLAN that this access point is on. We can set DHC or static IP configuration and also change the port VLAN. We've got whether or not the LED is on or off and the brightness. There's the enhanced PoE plus interoperability, which may reduce power consumption, but could impact stability. And there's SNMP available as well for us to get statistics across the network. And then if we click the locate button here, the LED on the access point starts flashing. There's other things here like restart, disable, and set replacement, so things like that. We're going into the port manager, and we see that we've got port 3 is showing green, but port 1 and 2 are not showing anything. Port 1 is data, port 2 is PoE out and data. And if we select those, we can then see the settings for those. So we can either tag different VLANs. At the moment, the ports are either active or disabled. You can auto negotiate, or you can explicitly set the transmission speed and the negotiation of the connectivity if you want to down regulate them to say 10 megabit or 100 megabit, something like that. And there's not really a whole lot more there. These kinds of settings are a fair bit more advanced. At the moment, PoE mode is turned off on this. We'll actually see that a bit later on. We'll turn the PoE mode on. Heading back to UniFi devices and the U7 in-wall, now that it's had a moment to actually complete getting set up, I clicked on AirView and it didn't show me anything. I'm not sure what's going on here. I might need to restart my UniFi console to get that. But going back to UniFi devices again and the U7 in-wall, we already looked at port manager. We now have things like the Wi-Fi name, the air stats for 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. We've got the parent device details in there, the experience, and the access point groups. So we can see that we've got the Force 5 gigahertz and HiveMind IoT 2.4 gigahertz on there. Going over to my settings and then Wi-Fi, we see that both the Force and HiveMind IoT are set to be broadcast on all access points there. So we didn't actually need to change any settings inside our UniFi console to start broadcasting on this new access point, which is great. So the only other thing I am looking for here is how many clients are connected. At the moment, we don't have any clients connected. I've just set it up in the correct orientation, which might help as well. And so we see now we've got 2 clients connected to the 5 gigahertz. And if I click on the picture of the laptop, for whatever reason that didn't load, I will go back to UniFi devices and then U7 in wall again, and we'll click on the number 2 next to the logo of the laptop and things, and we see we've got my phone and my watch are connected to this access point on the 5 gigahertz network there.
Okay, and lastly, we'll talk a bit about Home Assistant because that's kind of the core of why my channel exists, I guess. Now, I already have the UniFi network integration set up in my production instance of Home Assistant. So let's go and take a look at how the U7 in-wall appears in my Home Assistant setup with that integration.
So here we are, we'll go to settings and then devices and services, and I'm going to scroll down here and look for our UniFi network, and I'll click on that and we'll scroll through our list here. Unfortunately, we don't have any good filtering here, but every device on my network is listed here because this is actually used for presence detection on the network as well. But we'll scroll down, we'll find U7 in-wall, and we see that we have the device here. We've got the U7 in-wall shows as up to date, and we've got a restart button that we can press there as well. Our state is connected and its status is home, and the uptime is 21 minutes. We can click on the clients there and enable that disabled entity. Now in a moment this is going to refresh and we'll have a whole bunch more entities, which surprised me when it happened, so don't be too alarmed. We do see the activity. We've got that it became unknown, changed to provisioning, turned off, was detected at home, and the uptime changed, and then the connection changed. I'm just going to refresh this page, and everything went unavailable there for a second, but now we have 5 clients connected to it. Our CPU and memory utilization is showing up, and we've still got our state, and our U7 in-wall is showing as home. We also now have our PoE out and PoE data power. So this, as far as I can tell, should show me how much power is being consumed by the PoE port. And we also have the PoE out and data power cycle button here, which essentially is going to restart the power on that port. So I'll enable all of these disabled entities here. So PoE in and data, PoE out and data, and we'll get all of these entities enabled so that we can get all of the statistics for our U7 in-wall in Home Assistant. It takes a little while for these to update once you have enabled them, but there's quite a good amount of data in these, and especially having the ability straight from Home Assistant to press a button and it will power cycle a PoE port. That's actually really great. So it ended up taking about a minute for all of these items to load here. We see we've got data, and that's a toggle switch. PoE in and data, PoE out and data, also a toggle switch. And PoE out and data, PoE, is a toggle switch. So we can enable and disable the different ports on the device from Home Assistant, which is pretty fantastic. Something you're not seeing me do right now is plugging a Raspberry Pi with a PoE hat into port 2 on the bottom of the switch. And in a moment, I'll actually turn on the PoE out and data PoE switch in the console here, which I think enabled PoE on that second data port. I'm hoping that's what that did. It did take around about a minute for the Raspberry Pi to boot up, but it did boot up and it's been running just fine. But a little bit further down in this dashboard where we see the PoE out plus data PoE power, unfortunately, for whatever reason, I'm not seeing any data in there. It is still saying that it's unknown, so it doesn't seem to be gathering the amount of watts that the Raspberry Pi that is plugged into that port is actually consuming. I'm not sure what's going on there. Maybe there's a firmware update that needs to occur, or maybe there's something going on with my integration, but you'll see that it shows as unknown. It's been running for about a day at the time of me doing this voiceover, and it is still showing as unknown, but there is now a graph and I can see that it is expecting the data to be in watts.
So there you have it, the Ubiquiti UniFi U7 in-wall. I absolutely love the form factor of this access point. The integrated 2.5 gig switch at the bottom makes it a great option for hotels or offices. Because this second port here has pass-through PoE, you could reasonably use that port to provide power and Ethernet to a PoE VoIP phone. And then the first port here could go to a desktop workstation, or if you're in a hotel, you could maybe plug it into the hotel television. The fact that you can mount it against a standard wall box as well is fantastic because, it's not going to look out of place. It gives you Wi-Fi 7 coverage, and those 2.5 gigabit Ethernet ports makes it perfect for just so many different deployment scenarios. Like I mentioned, hotels and offices are the obvious use cases, but I can certainly see this being really useful in the home environment too. As I mentioned, this is going to go over on top of my entertainment unit for boosting the Wi-Fi signal back here in the back part of the house. But it could also be handy in a bedroom where you might want to plug in a smart TV and maybe a streaming device like an Apple TV. And now that you've got your wireless for your phones and tablets as well, plus wired connections for everything else, you can do that with just a single clean wall plate and a single cable run. I'll need to do some speed tests and other performance assessments off camera and maybe even in a separate video, but being Ubiquiti, I really expect the performance to be quite solid. It is worth noting that this is a dual band 2.4 and 5 GHz unit, not a tri-band, so it doesn't have 6 GHz support. If you do need 6 GHz, you'll want to look at the U7 Pro in-wall instead. For most people, if it's in a home situation or even a small office or hotel, the 5 GHz band on Wi-Fi 7 is going to be more than enough. If you have an existing Ethernet drop in your wall and you're already running PoE to that location, this literally just drops right into place. The metal wall mount that comes in the box is solid and the whole unit sits nice and flush against the wall when it's installed. The UniFi network application makes setup a breeze, as we saw. As soon as it was plugged in, it should show up in the controller and adopt quite quickly, and you can set up your SSIDs within a matter of minutes. It'll be broadcasting those SSIDs. I do really appreciate that you can have this port here do PoE pass-through, but it's important to realize that we do need to be feeding the unit with PoE Plus for that PoE pass-through to work. As mentioned, you could quite reasonably power something like a VoIP phone or a small PoE camera right from one of those switch ports and not have to have an additional cable run. Overall, I'm extremely impressed with this unit. As always with Ubiquiti gear, it's a clean, professional solution that solves real-world problems. How do you get both wireless and wired connectivity to a room without running multiple cables or needing to have a lot of visible equipment? It'd also be especially handy, I think, in buildings with thick reinforced concrete walls, which can be particularly challenging for wireless networking. With Wi-Fi 7, you're getting the latest wireless technology, and it should be future-proof for the next few years at the very least. If you're in the process of building out a UniFi network, or you're looking to upgrade your wireless infrastructure in your home or office, I think that the U7 in-wall is definitely worth considering, especially if you need that combination of wireless coverage and wired ports. Alright, that's it for this one. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, and if you want to see more UniFi content or other home assistant or smart home tech, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. As always, if you've got questions or comments, please feel free to drop them in the comment section down below. I'll do my best to answer them as I get time. Lastly, if you like what I do here and you want to support the channel to make more and hopefully better content, there's a Buy Me a Coffee link in the video description down below. Don't forget to check out my website, hivemindautomation.com.au. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Stu from Hive Mind Automation, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.